Hello, everyone. You should hopefully be able to hear us and see us. We'll be starting in just a second. We're just waiting for people to trickle in, and then we will get started.
Testing 1, 2, 3.
Oh,
Testing.
I should do that.
Tap, tap, tap.
Testing 1, 2, 3. Testing 1, 2, 3. Oh, it's a bit echoey, but I think that'll do for now.
What computer are you on? Did you ever get a new one?
No, I'm still in the studio. Which, funny enough, this morning it wouldn't turn on, and I don't know what was wrong with it. It powered on, but the screen wouldn't. I was like, oh, this isn't good. But it fixed itself eventually. Listen, Windows 11 is going to look great on this thing.
Get that tweet ready.
So people asking new place. No, it's the same place. I just moved it around a little bit. So this is what it looks like now. A little bit different. I have a corner desk, a stand-up corner desk, so I wanted to make the most of that.
All right, I'm going to send out Z tweet.
Good for you. Time to turn on focus assist. All right, I think I'm good.
Yep. Just going to send this tweet. All right. That is done. Hopefully my voice will hold up. Probably not.
Stop drinking.
I haven't had a drink in the last 2 nights. It's just
only 2 nights. How long ago did your doctor say to stop?
They said technically cut down. I don't drink
okay.
a lot. It's not like it's like 1 or 2 drinks. I just like have a super sensitive throat. It's really frustrating. Yeah. How do moms get to drink a gallon of wine a night and not have this issue?
That's your problem.
But
you didn't have
Dan
kids.
Just has a yeah. Like it's just no. All right. I am now recording.
I am now recording as well.
All right. 3, 2, 1. Welcome to the Windows Central Podcast, episode 229 for June 11th, 2021. Hey everyone, Daniel Rubino here, joined with Zach Bowden for another exciting episode of the Windows 11 Central Podcast. That's what we're calling it. It is June 11th, and so, I mean, it is just too coincidental. Our podcast has now fallen. The numbers are lining up. Numerology is true. Yeah, we'll be talking a lot about Windows 11 on this podcast, of course, as Microsoft put another tease up, and now we're all becoming wild conspiracy theorists. But there's some truth, I think, to this. This week we'll be talking, of course, the latest Windows news, besides, Windows 11 to Windows 10 stuff, as things have been happening there as well. We'll talk about some Windows 11 teases, Xbox news roundup. In a different world, this would technically be E3. It is kind of E3, but it's not as focused as it used to be. E3 kind of feels like it's going to span the month as gaming companies are just taking news into their own hands. But we'll talk about some of the roundups there, what's happened, some games that have been announced, some review roundups, including the HP Envy X360 and RTX 3060, Twitter as a new PWA. If you've been following my writing for a long time, I'm sorry, I do write poorly sometimes. But besides that, I've been a big fan of progressive web apps. And Twitter has been one for a while, but we're talking about how it's switched it up this week, actually today, before this podcast, and why this is kind of a big deal and what's going on behind the scenes. We'll talk about the Galaxy Book Go is now on sale. Microsoft Pride Surface skins. I got one of those, and it's actually really awesome looking. This is the second year they made like these skins, and they're just like I don't know. They're pretty wild. And what about the thing of the week, if we can think of one? Actually, I do have one. I should have mentioned it last week, but I probably have something. Who knows if Zach will have one?
Oh, it's looking unlikely.
Oh, man. Anyway, how you doing this fine Friday, Zach?
I'm not too bad. Actually, I guess my thing of the week is my new office. I have a slightly new office. It's the same room, but I moved it around. And now it's a lot better and I like it more. So there you go. And the reason I moved it around is because I got a corner desk, like a standy-uppy corner desk. And I wanted to like put it in the best position in the room, which is this corner. So I had to move everything around to make that work. But I've done that, and now, yeah, I'm here, and you can see my awesome Star Wars picture in the background.
No, it does look much better. I really want to redo mine, but it's just like my standing desk is massive.
Yeah.
Actually, if you recall, this was before Zach joined, I think. Back in the day, this was around 2013, 2012, our company used to have this contest when you hit 1 million words that you wrote, you got a freestanding desk from the company. And at the time we had I think it's called Atheros is the one that makes mine. And it's just massive.
Yeah.
And so I got this back in 2013. It sucks every time I move. I won't be moving anytime soon. But I really don't want to feel like moving it now, even though I kind of want to redo my office a bit. But we'll see. So, but yeah, your setup looks really, really tight. I should mention this week I did fly for the first time in like 15 months.
Wow, how was that?
I didn't complain about it on Twitter or anything, make a big deal out of it because quite frankly, it was fine. It was,
oh, yeah.
I was like unsure of a lot of things. Like apparently you got to wear the mask the full time.
Oh yeah. Don't they ask? I know. I doubt you was on a 4-hour flight, but every 4 hours you got to change it or something as well.
Oh, I didn't know about that. That's interesting. Yeah, no, this was a short flight. It was technically like 40 minutes, but it was while you're at the airport on the airplane, and then even in Uber, you got to wear one. So, but I don't really care about wearing a mask. It's no big deal. But yeah, the flight was fine, and I ended up signing up for Clear. It's funny because we'll just quickly mention this that Apple had their event this week. We're not going to spend a lot of time talking. We're not going to really talk about it because there was nothing there I cared about. But
yeah, nothing really happened for Microsoft users, so it's not the end of the world.
But they did focus a lot on privacy, and they lean into this. I think they should, right? Their thing is your data is secure with us. We don't sell your stuff to advertising. Microsoft does this mostly too. But this is in contrast mostly to Google, who, doesn't do these things. And I think it's a smart move. Like I said, lean into their strengths. That said, I kind of don't care about privacy and security as much. I mean, I have like very strict passwords and I do as much as I can. But while I was waiting at the airport, like I signed up for Clear. And if you don't know, Clear is like this, you give over your biometrics, scans your eyes, your fingerprints, takes a photo of you, and you pay like $170 a year, but so you can bypass all the lines. And it's you use it in conjunction with TSA Pre. Basically, even with TSA Pre, sometimes there's a line, but with Clear, you get to skip that line too. And so when it comes to privacy, I'm just like, yeah, take my biometrics. I don't care. I'm one of those people who's just like, I really don't care about this stuff. And I feel like that's sort of the majority of people. So I think it's smart Apple leans into this. I think it's smart that probably a lot of their audience, or at least some of their audience, really do care about this and they want that choice. And I do believe it should be a choice. That said, I think a lot of people using Android, I don't think they really care at all about this stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at all the nonsense that's come out against Facebook, it hasn't made a dent in Facebook whatsoever. They've grown. They've grown the last few months. More people are signing up and using it. So I find this privacy argument a prideful one and probably a rightful one. I also feel like it doesn't make any actual sense. So what do you feel about that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I just don't care. I'm totally, the privacy's gone. You can try, but they'll always get it. It doesn't matter really at the end of the day. And plus, I don't care who knows me, as long as it's not the people closest to me that know all my darkest secrets. If someone in China knows everything about me, what does that do for me? Nothing. I don't care what they know about me. It's like, whatever, it's fine. Like, as long as my personal friends and family don't find out everything, it's good. But that's my thoughts on it anyway.
I just hate traveling so much
Yeah.
that I'll take any advantage that I can get to make it faster. Like if they ask for my blood, I'd be like, yeah, sure, take my blood. It's fine. Oh, DNA sample? Go ahead. Oh, I can board first? Awesome. Like that's how I am. But anyway, let's get to the real news. So we had some Windows updates this week, and tell us what happened because I haven't been following too much actually.
Well, Patch Tuesday happened this week. There wasn't too much going. Was it Patch Tuesday? Yeah, Patch Tuesday was this week. There wasn't too much to really talk about regarding that. That's not really what I wanted to talk about in regards to the latest with Windows. Though now that you mention it, yes, it was Patch Tuesday, and all of the in support versions of Windows 10 got a handful of, or actually quite a few security updates and whatnot. So that's always nice to see. You know what I really like about the Windows Patch Tuesday thing is that it always arrives on the second Tuesday, unlike the Surface Duo OS updates, which are seemingly random. Just whenever Microsoft decides it's time to put it out there, it goes out. I wish they had like a Patch Wednesday for Surface Duo, but that's besides the point. Anyway, what I really wanted to talk about was Windows Cobalt and the latest with Windows internally. Because we are now at that point, we're in June, which means we're at the end of a Windows development semester. And that is the case with Cobalt. Cobalt has been the version of Windows that Microsoft has been developing for the last 6 months, which we do believe will end up being Windows 11 or whatever Sun Valley ends up being called. And as of last Friday, they compiled an RTM candidate, which I believe they're hoping will be the final build or the base build for the final build of Windows 11. Build 22,000. So it's quite a jump from build 21390, which I think is in the dev channel right now. It's an artificial jump. They didn't actually compile all those builds up to 22,000. They jumped to 2990, I think, and then they sort of just rolled 10 or so more builds to get it to 22,000. So what does this mean for insiders? Not much right now, but this just means that, assuming it all goes to plan, the Cobalt RTM will be based on build 22,000. That will go to OEMs for preloading onto hardware that ships this fall with the Windows 11 branding, we assume. And once the Windows 11 event happens on June 24th, I believe build 22,000 will go out to insiders in the dev channel. I'm sure there will be a revision on it, so 22,000.x.1, 2, 3 or whatever. And that will have all the new UX stuff in it and the new Windows 11 branding. And that will be pretty cool. So final stretch-ish for Cobalt, because although Cobalt is technically done now, Sun Valley isn't. Sun Valley is the UX layer that sits on top of it. Microsoft still has a couple of months to polish that stuff up, the UX stuff specifically. I'm told that will be sort of feature complete in July, I think. And then done, like actual final build with the Sun Valley stuff, all of it included in September. In time for an October release. So that's the latest on the Windows schedule as far as I'm aware. Of course, after Cobalt is, I believe it's Nickel, although I do not think desktop is getting a Nickel release. I think if it's anything... So with this Windows 11 stuff, obviously Microsoft going back to Windows 11 means that a Windows 12 is likely on the cards. I have a feeling that they're going to just do one major update a year, and it'll be Windows 11, Windows 12, Windows 13, etc., etc. So I don't think we'll get a Nickel release. We'll have to wait and see about that. But yes, that's the development cycle as of right now, and that's kind of the latest in regards to what's going on internally, because I know some of you are quite interested in that. The other sort of Windows stuff, of course, is, as we mentioned, the Windows 11 teasers, which appear to be quite purposeful now. At first we were sort of like, could this be purposeful in the event teaser? The fact that they removed the sort of window bar that made it look like an 11. Turns out, actually, it does seem like they're teasing the number 11 quite a bit. They uploaded this week an 11-minute video of basically nothing. It's a video that, if hadn't been uploaded, wouldn't have been missed. It's a slow-mo remix of all the Windows startup sounds, and it doesn't sound great. Like I said, this video wasn't uploaded. I don't think anybody would have missed it, but it's 11 minutes long. Also, in the YouTube metadata, it has 11 tags. The video is 11 megabytes. And I believe the highest frequency for one of the sounds in the video is 11,000 megahertz. So, or whatever.
Some of that, like the 11 megabytes, is technically not correct. Because if you download at the full quality, it's like 90 megabytes. So
right.
I think some of it is a little bit reaching, but it being exactly 11 minutes is very odd. And having 11 tags. And 11 tags sounds, again, it's like, well, maybe you're reaching. But someone went through basically all the rest of like their YouTube uploads, and they have something like 20 or 30 tags on a lot of the videos. This one is an exception at being at 11. maybe we're reading too much into it. I don't think we are, though. The question, of course, is Microsoft just doing a massive troll to everyone by doing this, and they're really going to call it, Brad Sams from Petrie was like, watch, they call it Windows 10.11 or something like that.
I don't think they will. It makes no sense to do that.
Yeah,
Windows 11
really
is it's the obvious and the correct choice. I know people can argue against it all they like. It makes the most sense. It's the easiest to do, and it portrays the most in such a small change. That's all that really matters. The fact that it goes to 11 means that it's new and it's different and it's better than the previous version. That's all Microsoft needs to portray, and that's what Windows 11 does. If they call it Windows Sun Valley, that's cool, but now Microsoft has to explain why it's different and why it's better and how it positions itself in the market alongside or above Windows 10. Windows 10X was called 10X for a reason, because it was to ship alongside Windows 10. Windows Sun Valley would also have to be explained in that way. Like, oh no, this is after Windows 10. And I know they've done Vista and XP before. Listen, times have changed. Everything's a number now. Let's skip with it, guys. This isn't like just Windows 11. Let's just do Windows 11. It's easy peasy. Let's go.
Yeah, agree there. The video was just cool anyway, because it's very. I want them to put it on Spotify.
I didn't think it sounded nice at all.
No, you know what it was? It was very relaxing. Like it sounded like something you'd hear in a spa or something like that when you're being like. And I can imagine putting it on at nighttime and just zoning out. There's something about certain tones played a certain way that resonate in the brain and adjust the brain waves and stuff like that. And I don't know, I thought it was kind of fun.
I find it really interesting how they uploaded this video just shortly after Jensen Harris uploaded his explanation about why they removed the startup sound. And Jensen's not at Microsoft no more, so I don't think he's part of this. I think it's just an interesting coincidence because obviously every version of Windows from 3.11, maybe 95, I can't remember, had a startup sound. And then that stopped with Windows 8. Windows 8 and 8.1 and 10 don't have a startup sound. Does Windows 11? Maybe.
I said, because we did the poll, and I think they should bring it back as an option, of course. Or there's so much they can do now with their technologies. One of the reasons they got rid of the startup sound was because the world was going to laptops and more mobile, and people didn't want to be in a library or middle of a class or a meeting and open their laptop and it go ding, or have some weird noise play, and that totally makes sense. But now you can do things like have it, know it's on the laptop and it's being used in your lap, right? So it won't play, or respecting the priority notifications, or even respecting hours, just like how the nightlight feature turns on a custom schedule. Like there are ways to do this. Perhaps it's overthinking it.
Yeah, I don't think they've gone to that level of integrating the sound back, but I do believe there is a startup sound in Windows 11. So they are sort of doing interesting, because we talked about this as well before. The 10X sounds, most of the 10X sounds are coming to Windows 11. I think the startup sound specifically is new and not been heard before. But a lot of the 10X stuff, like I said, once you see Windows 11, you'll know what I'm talking about in regards to taking inspiration from Windows 10X. It looks very similar to Windows 10X. There are differences, don't get me wrong, but it's very similar to Windows 10X.
What's the over-under that Panos is on stage and he'll do his talk and talk about the history of Windows, and then they're going to introduce it, and it's going to be the startup sound that plays like on a black screen.
I hope so.
And then it shows like the new desktop.
I hope so.
They're probably mad right now. They're like, "Damn it, that was our idea." They should do that, right? Like,
yeah, they should. They should try to make everything as big of a deal as possible. They really should.
They should, though. And we've had this conversation with Jez, and we're starting up a new series we should mention with a new writer on our site focusing on this, which is basically nostalgia on Windows. Microsoft has a very, very long history. They just celebrated their 40th anniversary or something like that. And so they've been around for a long time. And there's a lot of, nostalgia is a weird kind of drug because it is, right? We tend to remember the best of the times. I love the 80s now. When I was in the 80s, I was a tiny kid who couldn't do anything. but I kind of remember having fond memories. That's just the way memory works. But Microsoft should kind of lean into its history a little bit more. They have been, they've been joking around a lot more with Clippy, right? Clippy was something that they were so embarrassed about for a long time. They just refused to talk about it. Now they're starting to use it more and more. It's a lot more tongue in cheek, of course, but they've been bringing back some of their history, and they kind of should, like I said, on this new version of Windows, kind of lean into their past a bit more. I should mention our new writer is Stephen Chapman. He runs a Twitter account called Beta Collector, and he has a massive assortment of history from Microsoft's Windows releases. A lot of it comes from Japan, which is just completely different in terms of what they did. And he's been documenting and sharing this stuff on Twitter. He's going to start to do this on Windows Central too, doing specific articles about Windows XP's release and Windows 7 and all this kind of stuff. But I'd like to see Microsoft sort of embrace its past as well as looking to the future a bit more. Because I think there's a lot of people who are just kind of like that stuff.
It would be amazing. Speaking of nostalgia stuff, wouldn't it be great if the new Windows 11 startup sound is like a remix on one of the originals, or like one of the first few versions of Windows, like Windows 95 or 2000? Yeah, right. Because they're bringing it back. It has to be like a callback to old Windows. Yeah. I think. Oh, that'd be so cool. I hope they do that now. I'm hyping myself up for no reason.
This is done frequently, right? When they when they did the prequel Star Wars movies.
Yeah.
And now what's his name? I forgot the guy that does the music.
John Williams.
John Williams. He purposely linked back what they call little cues, and there's this has all been documented. You can go watch on YouTube and stuff like that, how he put in little bits of the Empire theme, stuff like that, in certain scenes, and just mix it in and twist it up a little bit. So it's very common to do that in music, and I'd be shocked if they didn't do some of that with these new sounds as well. So it's familiar but new. That's always the balance you want to do with this kind of stuff.
So yeah, 2 more weeks, I guess, until the Windows 11 event. I like how we're just accepting it's Windows 11 now. It's easier. Windows 11. It's going to be called Windows 11. June 24th at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Hopefully we get a preview build shortly after the event. I have if Apple could do it, why can't Microsoft, right? Apple always, on the dot after the WWDC keynote, they will drop the first preview build of iOS 15 or whatever the latest version of iOS and Mac OS is. If Microsoft can't do that, if Microsoft does this event and this will be coming to Windows Insiders next week, I'm going to be so annoyed.
Yeah, it is a little thing. It's a petty thing to be annoyed about.
But I will be annoyed. I will be very annoyed.
Yeah, they should be able to just flip that switch. It's come on, it's 2021.
Do you know what I mean? Yeah.
You knew this is coming. Why couldn't you get it all planned out? Yeah, it's gonna be interesting, and we should reiterate because I feel like we could do the whole podcast of us on loop, just saying the next thing over and over again, which is yes, we expect Windows 11 to be free. Yes, we expect Windows 11 to be free.
We said it before. It would be suicide if it's not. Every company on the planet is now releasing OS updates for free. It would be insanity for Microsoft to charge for Windows 11. It just would.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's just not how software updates are done these days. So yeah, it would be very strange for them to do that. And we don't expect. I know everything is Windows as a service. When that first started, people were like, "Oh, they're going to start charging a yearly subscription," and they do that for things like Office and obviously Game Pass. So there is that sort of thing there, but no, we don't expect that to happen with Windows, especially. It's still the case is when you buy a new laptop, you are buying the license for the operating system on there in perpetuity. And I believe that model is going to still continue because that's just the way it works. Now, when it comes to things like Cloud PC, which is still kind of a vague thing that's still kind of out there, we don't expect that June 24th, I don't believe. I think that'd be weird. It would mix the message.
Well, it depends. We talked about this earlier this week. One of my theories about Windows 11 is that perhaps they plan to tie, and this theory is totally based on no internal information. This is just straight from my own head. What if one of the big announcements in regards to Windows 11 is that it's the first version of Windows that's available in the cloud, as in You can subscribe to it and access it from anywhere via this cloud PC service. I think that would be an interesting way to announce this product. Obviously, it's a local OS that you can install on your device and stuff. But if you're an iPad user or an Android user or Chrome OS user, you can also get in on the fun and buy and rent Windows 11 via a subscription using this cloud PC service.
Yes. All right, I subscribe to that. I think that would, and I've heard a couple of analysts and stuff like that lean into this idea that Microsoft is going to lean into the cloud, right? I mean, that is their future with Azure and everything. We've talked about the notion of streaming an operating system is the future for a lot of it. It's just like adding AMD. It's just like adding ARM. It's a choice that Microsoft is going to offer, not make it the choice. Again, difference between Apple and Microsoft. Microsoft gives you choices and options. Apple forces you onto a new paradigm. So you're right. I could definitely see them doing that as Windows 11 as a cloud service as well, which would be neat. Could you imagine like streaming Windows 11 to an iPad Pro?
Right, exactly, yeah.
You know who might actually buy an iPad Pro at that point? This guy. That would be a really interesting thing, and kind of like why wouldn't they do that? Because Windows is a platform for the rest of Microsoft's platforms, which include Office and Edge, OneDrive, Skype, and all its services. Sure, you could do a lot of that on the iPad, but not quite in that Windows environment. Could you imagine? Could you do an iPad Pro streaming Windows 11 to it and then run Linux embedded, WSL?
Yeah, I mean, why not?
Apps.
And then you could load up a browser in the Linux WSL environment and then log into xcloud.com and then stream an Xbox game.
There you go. Yeah, though I think the future is going to get a little weird with this stuff. I'm a firm believer in it. Again, it's going to take time. Obviously, we need faster internet connections and stuff like that. But there's been so much effort put into this. I mean, game streaming is a clear example. Game streaming really is the you had Azure, of course, before this, and HP's been doing this stuff. HP offers a service with its ZBook series that lets you remote into a server where you can render your CAD on the server, stream to a ZBook, and that's just part of that. So the companies have been experimenting with this stuff for a while. I would say what we see with Xbox has been the first real consumer push from Microsoft. But that's going to fold over into the Windows stuff as well. And I think it's really neat.
Before we move on from this topic, this question popped up, and I've seen this quite a bit, so I just want to sort of try and tackle it. Do you think the name Windows 11 will be justified? Since Microsoft has not taken much time to develop Sun Valley, it doesn't seem to be a substantial change as the number increment suggests. So me and Dan have seen bits and pieces of Sun Valley, and based on what we've seen, I definitely think the name is justified. You've not seen the UX yet. Microsoft has cleverly sort of built around the Insider program this time around, in which they've been building this Sun Valley stuff for over a year at this point, but you've seen none of it. The code base, which is what Sun Valley is based on, is done, and you've tested the sort of most important changes for the under the hood stuff. So the stability of the operating system and all of that other stuff, all the under hood changes and enhancements and whatnot, those are in testing right now in the dev channel, and Cobalt is basically done. So all of those changes are done. You've tested them. Microsoft has the feedback they need to improve upon it and, well, at this point, finalize it. The UX layer is different. It's sitting on top of the operating system, but because it's most of it's detached, so Microsoft was able to develop it internally, ship out the builds, and you see none of it. They've been self-hosting it and dogfooding it internally for months and months and months. Satya Nadella mentioned he's been self-hosting it and whatnot. All of the people at Microsoft, and I assume some OEMs externally, have been testing this on their hardware. So the UX layer is almost done. It might be need a little bit of polishing, which is what the insiders are for. But the reason they've done it this way is so that they can have this event and announce this new version of Windows on stage, and make it a surprise, right? It would be kind of lame if they just put it all in the insider program and didn't make a big deal about it. So this is why they're doing that. Windows 11, the code base is different from the Windows 10 code base because Cobalt is, I think, 2 or 3 versions ahead of the current production version of Windows 10, which is based on Vibranium. We've had Magnesium, Iron, and now Cobalt since then. And so changes have been made to the code base. There is enough to differentiate them from a sort of code base perspective as well, although it may not seem like it if you install the insider builds themselves. That's because you don't really notice under the hood changes. But that, the same thing happened with Vista and 7. Not much changed between Vista and 7 apart from the UX layer. But that was fine back then, So this is sort of, think of it the same way in that regard. But yeah, you've not seen the reason we believe Windows 11 is called Windows 11 is because you've not seen Sun Valley yet. They've done a very good job of detaching that and hiding it for as long as possible. But once you see it on June 24th, I think you'll agree with us that yes, actually it makes sense that it's called Windows 11 because the UX is substantially different. It's just like 10X. It's much more modern, much more fluid, has new icons, new sounds. In every respect, it's a new version of Windows, hence why they're calling it Windows 11.
Yeah, I mean, the taskbar, the way it looks, the start and all this.
Some of the new features as well, which we've not talked about. Like there's new stuff that you've not seen yet coming to Insiders very soon after this event.
And if you saw 10X and the way it did apps, for instance, no live tiles, just icons,
yes,
if that stuff coming over it's a big deal change in the way you use Windows. Like, it's familiar mostly because it uses a lot of what we've already used when it comes to smartphones or Chrome OS or even a Mac operating system, this idea of static icons for an app. But it looks very different. I love it. I think it looks absolutely amazing. I'm very excited about this look. I mean, I can't. It's gonna be very hard, I think, not to install these previews.
I'll be installing it day one. no question.
Right, just which device do I install it on? It's gonna be, and of course this runs on ARM too, where this has nothing to do with ARM. ARM's not gonna I don't expect ARM to come later or anything like that. So I mean, you'll be able to install on all your devices, but I don't know. It's gonna be very cool. This is the summer of Windows, and it feels good because we haven't had one of these in a long time, And you combine that with a lot of the advancements that's been happening in laptops and PCs and the chip industry. AMD's been on a roll this week that new numbers came out that they're controlling 30% of the gaming market, according to a Steam survey of its users. Intel's doing well. Some leaks came out this week about Intel's next generation chips, which are going to finally hit 16 cores and even higher. There was a good article on I think it was on Motley Fool, but I forgot exactly. It was an analysis done. It was basically someone saying, sorry, I'm getting off on a little tangent here. But basically that AMD's chance to destroy Intel, it's basically that chance is almost gone at this point. And the damage done to Intel hasn't been that significant. But there's a lot of momentum and interest now in these markets and computing and everything like that. And Windows 11, I think, is going to be this sort of it was a very good pivot by Microsoft in the last year to go let's reinvest in Windows. And then we had the pandemic, and now there's all this interest, and they're going to time this right as that wave is cresting, right? And I think it's a really good timing for all this stuff. So, which would makes the fall.
Sorry, the other thing people keep saying is that Sun Valley is a multi-year release. That is not true. Sun Valley is this thing that we're seeing this year. There may be more UI stuff coming in the future, but that's not codenamed Sun Valley. That will be an entirely different thing. This is what happens as we go back to major yearly updates. They can't keep calling every new UX thing Sun Valley. That's not accurate to call it that. People seem to think Sun Valley is a multi-year thing. Not to my knowledge. Sun Valley is significant. The stuff that they've scoped for Sun Valley is shipping this year, or at least will be announced at this event and shipped whenever Microsoft deems it to. We think it'll be in October, but we'll have to wait and see. Whatever comes next year in regards to UI and UX, if anything, that will be under a new code name or a new UI effort or whatever. Or they might even have a code name for it. They might just be developing it and putting it out there.
Yeah. So we'll see. Got a couple more weeks left. We'll see what happens. Xbox news. I actually didn't get to follow this all too much. Although there was one game that was announced that I was very excited about, but I'll let you go first.
Yeah, so Microsoft held a sort of private press briefing for Xbox, or I guess games journalists and games media this week, where they sort of set the stage for E3 and their E3 keynote on Sunday, which hasn't happened yet, of course. But some of the most interesting things they sort of talked about is xCloud and their plans around streaming. And one of the things that they announced is that they're building an Xbox streaming app for TVs, smart TVs like Samsung or LG, where you'll be able to install an app and just play games through the TV, which will be pretty cool. But in addition to that, I think the bigger news is that they have announced that they're going to be building an Xbox streaming stick of some kind, which is what they've sort of toyed with before. If you remember Project Hobart, that was a code name for an Xbox streaming stick, an Intel Cherry Trail based streaming stick from back in the day. It was going to run some version of Windows, I guess, or Xbox OS, and it would have allowed you to stream Xbox games or play Xbox games or do something with the Xbox OS. That was cancelled, but now it seems to be that idea is back, and they appear to be working on it internally. They didn't give any ETA or pricing for this. They just said that it's something they're working on. So Microsoft revealed that they're working on new hardware and services that won't come to light for many years, including streaming devices.
And here's... I'm going to go buy an Apple 4K TV.
Yeah, they also announced that... I just had it and I've lost it now. What else did they announce? They also announced, let's see here, Xbox Game Pass is lifting retail sales of games while noting that consoles would remain in their flagship efforts. It's also coming to Australia, Brazil, Mexico, and Japan in 2021. And they're also almost done with upgrading all of the xCloud blades to the Series X so that your games run better and at higher frame rates. Although I don't think frame rate really matters when you're streaming. Above 60 anyway. I don't think you want to be streaming more than 60 frames a second. They also announced, let's see what else they announced here. They also they say they want to try and reach all 3 billion strong, the 3 billion strong gaming audience. I don't know if they're going to get all 3 billion. I think they sort of estimated 250 million for xCloud and whatnot, which is super interesting. But yeah, I don't think they announced any actual new games. I could be wrong about that. Dan mentioned he has a game that he's interested in talking about. What game are you talking about?
Something exclusive to Microsoft. It's just Tiny Tina's Wonderlands. So if you follow the Borderlands series, specifically Borderlands 2, I didn't really get through Borderlands 3. But there was a character called Tiny Tina who is absolutely amazing. And they're giving her like a spin-off video game called Wonderlands and has a bunch of characters in it. And actually Burke does the voice of Tiny Tina, and she's just freaking hilarious. And this game just looks absolutely insane because there's a unicorn in it called Butt Stallion. It's a whole thing. If you've never played Borderlands 2, you're missing arguably what I consider one of the greatest games. So that was the only one I really saw that was interested in. I mean, there's a lot of other cool stuff that's coming, but I didn't get to follow the Xbox stuff too closely.
Yeah, this was very much sort of high level overall plan for Xbox rather than actual games and things coming quite soon. Like I said, they mentioned streaming sticks and other devices that won't come to light for many years. Maybe they're working on a handheld, like a PSP type Xbox. I'd love that. I would buy that in a heartbeat. But they didn't. Like I said, they didn't confirm anything. Just that they're working on stuff that nobody's going to see for a while. So that's kind of interesting. But that was all of the sort of pre-E3 Xbox hype for the week. xCloud doing really well for Microsoft. It's proven to be a successful venture for them. It's shaken up the games industry, and it's actually doing well. Games developers seem to be on board with it. Most of them, anyway. Lots of them, that we're hearing more and more every time that this game's going to be on Game Pass day one. Amazing, and that's not just first-party Xbox titles because they're all on Game Pass anyway, but actual third-party titles from developers who aren't part of Microsoft's Xbox umbrella. That they're also jumping in on this and getting in on Game Pass, which means it works, right? So, well done, Microsoft, for thinking of this and doing it first and actually executing on it well, and not abandoning it after 6 months like some of your other adventures.
Yeah. I'll be curious about if they do the Xbox TV dongle thing.
I think they will, yeah.
They should, right? Because people like me are gravitating even away from the console just because I mentioned previously I do mostly PC gaming. And, at this point, why should I not get the Apple TV 4K just for watching TV, saving on electricity even? I mean, there's just a lot of reasons, right? So we'll see, though, how long it takes them to bring that to market. But it seems like the good news is because the Xbox division is doing so well. In fact, there was a story this week in the New York Times about Xbox, their strategy, um, you know, there's a lot of momentum, and not only that, they get a lot more freedom now to take more risks on these projects. So even in buying studios, like the more successful they get, the more Saatchi is like, all right, yeah, you want to go out and try that? Let's go try that now, right? And the Surface team has kind of earned that too, right? So they get to try a device like the Surface Duo, and we know there's going to be a Duo 2, probably a Duo 3, and they get the freedom to not just try a new device, but try a new device and have a couple iterations of it to really nail it down and figure out what it should be before canceling it. I don't think we're going to see this. I've said this before. We've never really seen a Surface device come out and then get canceled on its first gen. It's never happened.
Yeah.
People cite the Mini, but the Mini was pre-canceled.
It didn't come out.
Yeah. So they just knew this idea was never going to see 3 versions. They're like, yeah, no, this is all good stuff. So,
yeah.
Anything else for the gaming news?
I don't think so. Like I said, Xbox's actual E3 showcase is on Sunday. Hopefully, we're going to see Halo Infinite, some stuff from Bethesda, and other games. So yeah, super exciting.
The usual. Quickly, we did review. I didn't do it, but Kale did. Kale Hunt, our reviewer. The HP Envy X360 15. I'm a huge fan of the Envy series. I actually got to prefer them to the Spectre. Spectre is really nice, but it's a little too ornate sometimes for me. But some people like it. The Envy line is a little bit more affordable, and so they have this new. As the name implies, it's a 15-inch laptop. It's a 360 convertible. It's a rare form factor to get, right? You don't get a lot of the convertibles in 15-inch, mostly because they become quite large at this point. But this one is actually moderately sized and looks really, really nice. And for you AMD fans, this does have the AMD Ryzen 7 5700U. In the display, obviously, this is where the price comes down a bit. You're only going to get a full HD 1920 by 1080 touch display. So no 4K option, which is unfortunate. And being AMD, of course, there is no Thunderbolt 4 option as well, which is still a mystery to me. I don't have an official answer as to why AMD laptops don't have Thunderbolt 4. Granted, it's technically an Intel technology, and I hear technically it's possible, but we don't know why it just literally never happens. I don't know if that's AMD refusing to license the technology from Intel, Intel refusing to license it to AMD. It's a technical reason. I don't really know, but if you're on Team AMD, Team Red, you're just gonna have to forego Thunderbolt 4, which is such a weird thing to have to give up. I don't consider it necessarily a huge deal personally, but I'm just more interested in the reasoning behind it. But there you go. So that laptop got a 4.5 out of 5 stars, and pricing starts at $800. This is what's nice about the Envy stuff. I just like the build quality. HP makes all their laptops metal. They have, I think, the best keyboards, second to only maybe Surface. Surface really has some of the best keyboards, but the HP keyboards are really, really nice. This doesn't have a full number pad, I should mention, because I know there are people who will, if it's a 15-inch laptop, it has to have a number pad, and this one doesn't. I prefer no number pad because why?
Too.
Zach, you know why? Because it's all centered.
Yes, exactly, 100% the same reason.
Yeah, and I just don't use number pads. I think they're weird. But you also get top firing speakers. Again, that's the right way to do it. I actually believe they do quad speakers, which is the real way you're supposed to do a 360 device. You have 2 top firing, and then you have 2 bottom firing. So that when you rotate it around, you still get audio at the bottom as well. But yeah, just I didn't get to try this laptop. I actually told Kale to review it because I didn't have time. But now I'm looking at it, kind of envious I didn't get to review.
You've got so many others to get on with. Don't worry about it.
I know. That's just my problem. It's just too much good stuff. So we also did get to review the RTX 3060. Was that what it was? Oh, no, I'm clicking it wrong. Here we go. Yeah, and NVIDIA's GeForce RTX 3060. This is the big GPU for desktop PCs, not the laptop version, obviously. And so give that 4 out of 5. I didn't read that full review yet, but if you want to go check that out, Rich Edmonds did that review, and he's very good on our graphics card stuff and put it through its paces. I see the bad. He says doesn't need 12 gigs of RAM. Not good for crypto mining. So the RTX 3060 Ti is the better choice. So the Ti version was just announced and is coming to market now. So that probably is a better buy. But if you just do full HD gaming and you really want high performance, that's your best budget. Of course, the question is, can you find one? Let's see. Amazon has 3 in stock for $1,200, 1,180. Not cheap at all, but at least you can buy it. So that's kind of cool.
You know what else you can buy? The Galaxy Book Go.
Yes. So we talked about this last week, I believe it was. It was announced. Samsung hasn't done an amazing job of promoting this device. But for those curious, this is running the Qualcomm Snapdragon 7C Gen 2. It is now available for purchase, and it comes in at the low price of $350, which is very enticing for a lot of people. Now, of course, at that price point, there are some corners cut. You get a full HD 14-inch display, TFT, although Samsung TFT is very good TFT, so I'm not really worried about that. It's non-touch. You do get just 4 gigs of RAM and 128 gigs of storage. Again, I'm totally fine with that. I've used 4 gigs with the Snapdragon on PC before, totally fine. If you're using this for web, email, Office, Slack, Skype, and Telegram, or some messaging, totally fine. Totally fine. If you're doing CAD work or rendering photos and video, it's going to be a slower process, obviously. But I think people oh God, I almost did a Bushism there. Underestimate the how good Windows 10's memory management actually is. It's pretty smart. And I've never I don't know what people expect with 4 gigs of RAM. Like, the system didn't feel like it never slowed down. It never froze. And apps didn't crash. The operating system didn't freeze. I don't know what people were expecting with 4 gigs of RAM. It just ran. It ran every other PC I had. The biggest limiter was the processor, but I guess it depends what you're doing on it.
Interestingly, at least in the UK, the 8 gig model isn't available yet, just the 4 gig one. It's kind of annoying.
That's here too. So there will be an 8 gig version, 8 gigs of RAM. So if you do need more RAM, that will be an option. There's also a 5G version coming later this summer. So there are options here. This version is Wi-Fi only, no LTE, and that's how they're cutting down these prices. But at $350, this thing will get better performance in Intel's Pentium and Celeron and Atom processors. So we got to put it through the benchmarks yet. We haven't received it, and Samsung told me they're not sending it out for review, which is kind of infuriating. So I'll probably just end up buying it because it's so cheap. But I know there's a lot of interest in how this device will perform. But if you just need a light, 3-pound, 14-inch laptop, that'll get very long battery life. You just need it for word processing, Office, web, and email.
It was really funny. In the UK, you can on Samsung's website, you can actually trade in for up to £200 off. So you can get it for essentially half price if you have an old laptop you want to trade in. They are taking Apple devices. You can send in a MacBook Air from 2013 for £200 off. Or there's also some PCs, but they go by processor, which is interesting. So they say you can send in an Intel Core i5 7th gen 15-inch or above for £200 off and stuff. So that's interesting that they're doing trade-ins for this. But yeah, I might buy one.
So Brandon's sister in comments, this is what I'm talking about. This is the ignorance about what I'm talking about. Windows 10 right now uses 6.81 gigs of RAM for me. So 4 gigs would be sucky.
That's not how that works.
That's not how this works. Yeah, Windows will allocate the amount of RAM you give it. If you have a 64 gig RAM system, it'll even use more RAM than 6. If you give it 4 gigs of RAM, it's going to use around 2 because the operating system dynamically allocates based on what is available.
There's also, I believe it also uses, I think there's a virtual page file or something, which is a virtual version of RAM. It takes up storage. But Windows can save stuff into that as well. So, as Dan mentioned, Windows is dynamic in how it uses RAM. If you're using Windows on a 4 gigabyte machine, actual running required resources, it will shut down resources it doesn't need in the background more so, and it will use less just by default. And then if you're running multiple applications, although it will be slower to switch between some of them, sure, what it does is it puts it into this virtual page. And so it's saved there, so it can restore without having to crash or close entirely. Yeah, so 4 gigabytes for most people is fine. If you're a power user, of course 4 gigabytes isn't enough. But we're not saying that it's fine for everybody. 4 gigabytes is fine even for me, who just writes stuff and browses the web. It's totally fine for, I think, the majority of people. Just nobody gives it a chance because 4 gigabytes sounds low. It is low, don't get me wrong, but it's not unusable in any way.
And also, yeah, someone's asking, it doesn't use eMMC, it uses UFS for the storage, which I believe is higher than.
Does it have LTE?
So it's not in this model, not the 350 model. It's
Okay.
Wi-Fi. There's an LTE model that will be available at some point.
Isn't it interesting how didn't Qualcomm originally say, "Oh yeah, they'll all be LTE compatible," and now that's just not the case.
Yep. And besides even the cocktail napkin math you want to do on Windows memory management, I'm telling you, I've personally used the Snapdragon 850, the older version, the one that's even slower than the 7C Gen 2, a Snapdragon 850 and the 835, the very first gen, on devices with 4 gigs of RAM. I use it as my personal device. I used it when I travel. I was able to run the website. I was able to do all my messaging. And I used it because it was one of the few devices that was so thin and light and also had LTE. I had no problems.
We even have a video of us using the Surface Go 4 gigabyte with the Intel Pentium, whatever it was, Gold 4415Y, with 4 gigs of RAM. And, it's totally fine. If you watch that video, Dan's doing everything that he would be doing on the 8 gig model, and it's just fine. There's really no problems with it.
That was a great video. That's one of our best videos we ever did. So yeah, if you go looking on our YouTube channel, it's just Surface Go, and I think it's like 4 gigs of RAM, and it's a trick video because just go watch it. It's pretty fun. But yeah, I was playing video games on that thing and everything. People are really ignorant. People are really ignorant about the things they don't have.
Yes,
which
of course.
is fine. Like it's okay to be like, I've never used a device with 4 gigs of RAM. Therefore, I'm going to withhold my opinion on it. I'm a little skeptical of it. Maybe I have questions, but I'm not. But the people who just weigh in and have never used these devices, or don't understand the market they're there for, that's the worst. It's okay. It's okay if you never used a 4 gig device and you don't have an opinion on it. Just don't act like.
I love it when people are like, "Oh, if 4 gigabytes is bad for me, so it's bad for everybody." It's like, no,
right?
That's just not how that works either.
I mean, there's a reason why people are okay using Chromebooks or an iPad as their main computer.
Exactly.
I mean, I find that personally, I've said that before in this podcast, that I love the iPad hardware. I think it's absolutely, and every time it comes out, I want to buy one, and I have bought them in the past, and I just literally have no use for them. But I don't go then and say, oh, the iPad sucks, no one should buy it. Because one, that'd be the dumbest thing to say. Clearly, people are enjoying it. But it's okay to recognize that because it doesn't work for me, it could work for other people, and people really enjoy it, and it's fine for them. That's fine. But yeah, if you're used to running an XPS 15, spoiler alert, the $350 computer won't be as good. Then again, we're starting to get into streaming Windows 10, Windows 11.
It's true.
Streaming operating systems. It's going to get around all this stuff. It's all going to be nonsense in the future anyway. You're just going to need a good internet connection. Anywho, that was a longer thing on Galaxy Book Go than we probably should have done. But we'll try to get one in-house. I'll try to do a review of one. I think it's a cool little 14-inch laptop, available now. Ships around June 21st. So speaking of devices here, Pride Month going on. Microsoft is all in on it. I'm showing here the Surface Pro with the new Pride skin on there. Microsoft sent this over here. Really cool skin. They've been doing, this is the second year in a row they've done these now. And they're just actually really nice looking skin. So it's $15 for that one. They do still have the older ones for Surface Go and Surface Book and laptop. There's a bunch of Xbox stuff too. They made an Xbox Pride controller, but it's not for sale, and everybody's really upset because it's a really nice looking controller. My hunch is, knowing how that Xbox team works, they're seeing the feedback. I bet they're going to release it. It'll be a limited edition. I bet they get it out by the end of this month or something like that. It might be a little bit behind on the production end of it, but there's no reason why they can't mass produce those and sell them. I think they would sell a lot of them. I think they would sell it very quickly. So we have more pictures of that on windowscentral.com, of course, if you're interested. But yeah, if you're looking for a way to spice up your Surface Pro, I endorse that skin. It's pretty cool. All right, let's talk about, Twitter. Twitter's a new PWA. So Twitter, the official Twitter app that's on the Microsoft Store, has been like a PWA for, I don't know, a year or two now, a couple years maybe. But it was using the web view, older web view, which means there's this combo of like a UWP as well as being powered by Edge. And it worked. It was kind of cool, and it got regularly updated. It was a really nice app. But ever since the new Edge came out, the one that's based on Chromium, you always had this other option where in the browser, you can just go to twitter.com, log in, and then you can install that as an app. And I've been doing that because the Chromium version is the new version of Edge, is more modern, has more support for PWA and all this kind of stuff. And Microsoft's been consciously making PWAs more native. So I've been running it like that forever. And I've been recommending to a lot of people, you can do this basically for anything. You want YouTube as an app, just go to youtube.com and Edge, install it as an app. You can do this for Google Maps with full GPS support, Google Photos. All the Google services run as full PWA apps. So what Microsoft did today, though, or actually Twitter, I should say, did today, was they updated the app in the store, and now it switches over to the new Edge Chromium. And it does the same trick as Facebook does, which is it's not really installing via the store. It installs via your web browser. So after you install this, when you go to your Edge web browser and you go under apps, you'll see Twitter is now installed magically behind your back. It's a real tricky thing they're doing here, but it's very good because what it's doing is it's giving you an app that is based on the Twitter website, which means as soon as Twitter flicks a switch and adds a new feature, you got it. There's no app update to be done. And there's no app support anymore. It's just installed. So if you are now using your Twitter app on Windows 10, you notice things have changed. It did for me. As I explained to Zach, you can install all the Edge browsers, Edge Production, Beta, Dev, and Canary. You can install all of them side by side. And I did, and I had Twitter installed on most of them via the app. And then I had the Twitter app, but I only had that as the Windows Central account so that I would never drunk tweet something from the Windows Central account. And I couldn't find it today because they were all reverted to my account. And that's because they were relying on Edge now, not as a separate instance. So I had to find it on my system and then log out and make it the Windows Central version. But yeah, this is cool stuff. I mean, so what of course this means, so this was all kind of announced months ago that they were going to start to do this. Any dev can do this if they want to as well. But it means in theory, there's no reason why YouTube or Google just couldn't just be like, here are all our apps. Here's Google Photos, here's Maps, here's Gmail, all in, here's Sheets and whatever app they got. They could just put those all into the store, and you click and you install them, and you just install via Edge, and you would have these apps. And you can pin them to your taskbar. You can put them in your start menu. You can put them on your desktop. Like, it's the full thing. So
it's a shame. It's a shame because I don't think Google will do that. But what's stopping Microsoft from pulling those and just putting them in the store as PWAs?
Nothing really. I think it's just,
I guess maybe their logos.
What the hell? What are you doing?
Yeah.
And and they're in this relationship now with Google, with the Duo, and and they've done stuff like that in the past, right? I mean,
well, they built a YouTube app for Windows Phone, and Google said, no, that's no, thank you.
For those who need a refresher of one of the worst instances of
so
Windows Phone history, Google refused to make a YouTube app for Windows Phone, and it was hurting the platform. Mm-hmm. So Microsoft said, "Hey, Google, we know you're busy." They tapped them on the shoulder. We know you're busy. We'll just make the app for you. We'll run it by you. And we'll, it'll be cool. And they did that. And then Google was like, no, you can't do that. And they're like, you're not obeying all our rules. Like, it doesn't have ads and doesn't have this. Microsoft's like, cool, fine. And they fixed all that. And they're like, there we go. It's got everything you want. And then there was like, Google asked for it to be made in HTML5. Like, now, you got to make it now in HTML5, which was weird because the Android app and the iOS app were not HTML5. So this was like now they're just like kept moving the goalpost. I mean, pretty soon they're like, and they kept so they kept doing that. And eventually they revoked the certificate for the app, making it not function. And it was a real dirty dog thing. This is why people kind of...
Yeah, it was also really embarrassing for Microsoft because they announced it. They were like, "Oh, the new YouTube app for Windows Phone, here it is," and then it disappeared. It stopped working. Like, it wasn't even a week later. I think it was only a few days, or even a day, before the tokens were like, "Nope, you're not having it."
This is like the dirt bag Google. Right?
Yeah, this is
where you can get into this idea that I love someone trying to spam our channel.
Yeah, I've got them hidden already.
But this is like that, and I don't know if they're still like that today, right? But there, Microsoft has had a history like this too, right? So they're not innocent. But this was a clear example of Google just giving the middle finger to Microsoft on the phone and just going, nope. And they did it on purpose to sabotage the success of Windows Phone. They didn't want it to succeed. And they knew withholding not only YouTube, but all its apps from the platform would do that effect. Apple did the same, but Apple's like, no one expects anything more from Apple, right?
Right.
But from Google, that was just real dirty. So that's really bothersome. But you're right. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen here with the store. And if Google, now here's Microsoft using its Edge browser based on Google's kind of Chromium. We'll have to wait and see. But you don't need to. That's a cool thing now. You don't need to wait. You can just go to youtube.com, install as an app, and you're going to get, it's exactly the same. I'm telling you, if you install, you can try this yourself. Launch Edge, have Edge and have Edge Dev. Have both installed on your system. Go to the store and install Twitter and see what happens. And then install Twitter PWA under Dev and then compare them. And they're going to be exactly the same. Now, the advantage here of this stuff, too, I should mention, is really kind of cool. One, you can have it tied to your browser profiles, which is nice for some. But you can also run web extensions. So I spell terribly. So I realize I use Grammarly, or you can use Microsoft Editor. But if you use those as plugins, they will now show up in Twitter. So all my tweets have correct grammar and correct spelling because these plugins run. You can also run things like AdBlock or whatever else you use for an extension will show up in these PWAs too, which you can't do with apps, right? Apps don't do that. Apps are just completely siloed. So there's a lot of cool advantages here for using this stuff. And I should mention, it's only going to get better. There's a lot of plans here. You can see it in Edge Dev and Edge Canary for PWA to make them run better, more native-like, auto startup, and they're cleaning up. You can hide the title bars and all this kind of stuff. So this is a very exciting stuff. Helps on Windows on ARM. If you're on Windows on ARM, you can install all these as apps too. Heck, you can go install Disney Plus as an app. You can go install the Kindle web version, Amazon Kindle. So you can read your ebooks, and that works very well. Hulu works as a web app. I believe Sling does too. YouTube TV I use as a web app. So you can use all this stuff as PWAs, and they just look and run like apps. So I don't know why people wouldn't want to do this, but there you go. Did I miss anything for news, Zach, that you would like to chat about?
I don't think so. I think that was basically it for this week. I'm curious about what we're going to talk about next week, because I guess E3 is on Sunday, so I guess we could talk about that next week. Because I'm going to say, it's going to be a lot of just umming and ahhing until we get to the Windows event on the 24th.
I got a lot of reviews to do for next week because I'm so behind on everything and people are yelling at me all the time. One of those will be the Surface Headphones 2 Plus. I should have that early next week. That's a huge update, obviously. Just a dongle. But we'll talk about what that is.
Do they still have Bluetooth if you want to use Bluetooth?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yes. Yeah, it's Bluetooth or the dongle, so it's kind of nice. But I'll show you what's new with that, and I gotta get some laptops done too, and a couple other stuff. So, all very good. All right, Zach, you have a thing of the week for us?
No, the thing of the week was my new office.
Fair enough. I just have a couple minor things. Going to give a shout out to the best band in the world, according to Dan. That's Rise Against, and they have a new album out, and it's really, really good called Nowhere Generation. I've been listening to it nonstop. It's one of these albums. It's like it's so good, it's annoying. They have the theme song for the album, the title "Nowhere Generation," is actually annoyingly catchy. It's like a pop song. It gets stuck in my head and won't leave, and I actually kind of hate it. So I actually skip that song as much as I can. It goes to show you though how music can be written today. They like figured out the psychology behind of a hook, and they got it. But anyways, really good album. Big fan of it. I'll also give a shout out to. I did finish MODOK on Hulu, which is just absolutely hilarious. And then also started watching, of course. Oh no, and I forgot the name of it. Loki. It's too many weird words. Zach, did you watch Loki yet?
Yes, I watched episode 1 of Loki when it came out on Wednesday. It's not too bad. I think it started off quite strong. It's got a good premise. I like how well, actually, I won't say anything. Never mind. Because I'll spoil anything.
No, it's he's one of my favorite characters. Because he has so much dynamicism to him, right? He's good, he's bad, and the show's been more highly rated than WandaVision and Falcon, and
I think it's because the stakes are quite a bit higher in this one. It's like it affects the entire MCU kind of if it goes where we think it might go. Yeah.
This introduces the idea of a multiverse, and we already know the next version of Doctor Strange is going to do that.
And there's big rumors. Spider-Man might have something to do with this as well. So yeah, it's sort of setting up the next sort of few movies for the MCU, and that's pretty exciting.
They did an outstanding job on casting too, but I think the whole premise is just pretty awesome. Like they do such a good job of filling in the gaps between stories and explaining all the stuff kind of behind the scenes. I'm very excited about this. I think I mentioned this last time on Apple TV, Mosquito Coast. I finished that too. And that's hopefully getting a second season. That's a really, really good drama. Big fan of that. So a lot of good stuff for the TV. But yeah, all right. So I think that does it for this podcast. Wow, just an hour. Pretty quick this week.
Yay! Finally, I can clock off early.
Should do some shout outs also to our site. If you don't know, we now have a Discord channel. You are all free to join in. You can go to, you can just go to, it's just Windows Central as the address, but you can go to windowscentral.com/Discord. We have the link there and you can join. And we have a bunch of sub channels, one for Windows 10. We have stuff on Surface. We have ones on just wallpapers where people share their wallpapers, which is awesome. We have, of course, Xbox and gaming where people talk about that stuff. Even some off-topic channels. No politics. And we have strict rules, which are just don't be a jerk. Otherwise, we'll just ban you. We don't care. We don't care if you're there. We're just
wow, good way to advertise. We don't care if you're there. Just sign up.
We just want the good people. We want the people who want to have fun and talk. And if you hate Windows and you just want to talk about how awesome Linux or Mac OS is, don't join. That's it. We don't care. We're not interested. It is our bubble.
We do. We have. I think we're close to 800 members. That's not including all the other roles that we have for mods and stuff. So I think we are over 800 total people in the channel now, which is really cool. Like Dad said, we've been having great discussions about Windows 11 and what we think's happening and stuff. And like I said, but we're basically always available if you want to ask us questions there. Though we may not answer straight away all the time. Yeah, I gotta say, we do need to sort of tell so I have to close it sometimes because I need to work.
I know it is, but a lot of people are sharing a lot of cool wallpapers and memes and just like some really neat stuff in there. So once again, windowscentral.com/Discord. And we should also mention we did shoot another episode of Ask Windows Central, which will come out next week. So that's episode 3, where we'll continue to do a little bit longer form of answering your questions. So look forward to that. Other than that, follow me on Twitter, Daniel_Rubino, or follow Zach at ZACBOWDEN, and we'll answer your questions there. We will do Q&A now with the audience for the live broadcast, but if you're listening to this recorded, this is where the podcast ends, but you can join us every Friday, 2:30 p.m. Eastern time on our YouTube channel at Windows Central. You join in the live podcast. You can also rewatch old episodes there as well. As always, thanks for tuning in. We'll catch you next time. Take care, everyone.
Awesome. So yes, if you have any questions, now is the time to ask them. I saw loads of them about Sun Valley.
Cool. I can go get a coffee then.
Yeah.
What is the closest Surface comparison device to that Samsung Go, Galaxy Book Go?
The Surface Go.
Say the Surface Laptop Go.
What about price? Technically, price. I think the standard Surface Go is comparable, but then you don't get a keyboard. So
he's saying ARM RAM storage. There really is no device that directly compares to it. To be honest, it's like
the only one.
Laptop Go, but on ARM. Laptop Go obviously has a little bit more features, touchscreen, all that kind of stuff.
Well, the new version of Windows still have Home and Pro? Yes.
Oh yeah, it's like you want to get questions from the Discord channel, you can do that too.
If there are any, yes. I don't know where our podcast chat feed went. I think it's in our I think Jez deleted it. Well, there's the Ask Windows Central channel. So if you have questions, if you're in the Discord and you want to ask us questions there, the Ask WC WinC channel is the place to do it. Do you see a time where PWAs allow Microsoft to re-enter the mobile market, eliminating the app gap? Yes, but we're a long way off from that. Web technologies need to come a long way for that to become a thing, really. But if and also services and apps need to adopt it full time, which isn't the case yet, you know. But yeah, I like to think one day Microsoft could, if they wanted to, build a Windows Phone again and not have an app gap problem because everything is a web app. But yeah.
Wow, kind of breaking news here. Boot Camp gains Windows Precision touchpad support.
Wow, are you kidding me? That's incredible because the touchpad driver on Mac Boot Camp is terrible. It is so bad. But yeah, good to hear that they're doing Precision now. Anything on Windows Core and how it relates to 11? No, Windows Core and Windows 11 are unrelated. Do you see Microsoft putting Windows 10/11 features behind the subscription wall like Office 365 to keep IT admins from losing their minds when it rolls out? No. I think what Microsoft are going to do is they're going to make Windows 11 a thing, but if you don't want it, you can stick on Windows 10, and that's where Windows 10 21H2 will come in and whatnot, and that operating system is supported up until 2025. So, enterprises will be able to stick with Windows 10, I believe. But eventually, enterprises have to move on. They had to do it with Windows XP. They have to do it with Windows 7. They'll have to do it with Windows 10. But in 4 to 5 years' time, Windows 11 will be either replaced by Windows 16, and the UX will likely be much more mature by then. So,
new Microsoft patent about kickstand. So Duo 3 with kickstand. I don't think that's
so. The genius design about the Duo is that it has a kickstand. Itself.
But moreover, I think, first of all, they do a lot of patents, and just because they do a patent doesn't mean they're going to actually do it, right? Second thing is, I don't think it makes sense on Duo. On Neo, I think there's more of an argument because you could then prop up the device and use it as a big display with a keyboard that way, right? It makes sense to kind of want to do it like that, and that's where the kickstand would make it. And it makes more sense as a computer setup. I don't see why you would want to do that on Duo. It seems too small. Space is a lot more, you have a lot more room on something like a Neo to do that. That said, I'm not sure if they're actually going to do it, but If they are, I would bet it on something like a Neo more than a Duo. Will Windows 11 be available at launch or only a year later? Neither. We expect Windows 11 to launch in the fall. That's it.
Do you
That's
think?
the story.
Do you think there will be a server component of Windows 11, and will any features in the next server release, not 2022 but later, be included? I'm not too sure about server. I do know that Windows 11 this year, Windows 11 will not have a server release. Windows Server 2022 is done, and that's still using the old school sort of Windows 10 UX. Who knows when the next version of Windows Server will be rolling around? I assume when that does, then they will likely try to adopt the Windows 11 UX and adapt it for server use. But yeah, I'd have no insight into Windows Server plans.
What did you all think of WWDC in comparison to Build? I don't have an as a developer, someone who's not a developer. I simply don't have an opinion on
WWDC was more interesting to watch, but there was still nothing really interesting to me because I'm not an Apple user.
I mean, I have an iPhone and I have an Apple Watch, but everything they announced as improvements, I don't care about. I'm a pretty basic phone user. Like, so I told you, like, the only thing I'm interested in for iOS was when they brought widgets. And they're making iPad OS more like a PC with a start screen now. So, I mean, that's kind of cool, but.
Do you think Panos is going to reveal new hardware at the Windows event? I don't think so. I think because this Windows event is going to be more than just. It's not about Surface, right? It's about Windows, and Windows is a platform that runs on thousands and millions of PCs, all built by all kinds of different partners. So it kind of takes the spotlight away from Windows if they announce a new Surface. That said, I wouldn't be surprised if because they could do this here, and I think it would make sense for them to do so. If they were to re-announce Surface Neo with Windows 11, I think that would be acceptable. But they could also be like, oh yeah, so Surface Neo, Windows 11 plus here's a sneak peek at some other dual screen devices from Dell and HP and whatever. They could do that. That's just a theory. I don't know if they will. But otherwise, no, I don't think they will.
And even if they don't do that as an announcement, I could definitely see them in like a Sizzler reel just showing Neo running Windows 11, leading all of us to speculate, oh, there it is, it's still alive, and they're still thinking about it, because who knows if the dual screen support aspect of this would be ready by the fall. That still might not happen until 2022 at some point. So they maybe don't want to announce it, but at least we'd be able to speculate, be like, oh, there it is, it's still kicking around.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it would be a good sort of point in the event to be like, oh, and this new version of Windows allows us to create new form factors that were not possible before, such as Surface Neo or whatever they want to showcase.
Do you guys like the animated logo I made for the Discord group that's in use right now? I actually haven't seen it, so.
If you click on the little the logo on the little sidebar, it does like a little flip now. Yeah, it's cool. That's real cool.
Oh, okay. Nice. I do like it. Thank you. See, this is all from our cool audience and members on our Discord server. They're all doing really fun stuff.
Well, Windows 11 support Android apps natively as Windows 10 was planning to support Linux GUI apps natively using WSL2. We don't know anything about when the Android app support will show up. We know it's something they were definitely considering internally and working on, but I've always been told that would go into preview later this year, which means it probably won't ship until next year at the earliest. Therefore, it won't be part of Windows 11.
It's more just a statement. I'm using the precision drivers on Boot Camp, and they are driving me crazy. They do not have palm rejection. Typing is difficult. Well, that's frustrating. And plus, you still can't use Boot Camp on the M1 processor, right? I think you can do it with Parallels.
Yeah, you can do. Yeah, you can't use it on the ARM ones. You can do it on the Intel ones, though.
Yeah.
Will there be a Windows 11 enterprise? I assume so. For the bold enterprises who want to go headfirst into a new UX.
You think Xbox will launch their version of wireless controller with advanced haptics like the ones available on Sony's DualSense controller? No idea. I'm sure they're thinking about that stuff, but yeah.
Does Sun Valley / Windows 11 have a new lock and login screen? I don't know. I've not actually asked about the lock and login screens. I've only seen the desktop and the apps and stuff.
I mean, 10X did.
10X
God.
did, but that's because they didn't have a choice. Yeah, I don't know. I've not seen one personally, and I've not asked. If I find out, I will be sure to let you know. The other part of your question is: will the media creation tool give 21H2 or Windows 11? I assume there'll be a choice. There'll be a Windows 10 media creation tool and a Windows 11 one.
To mention how Jez Corden, our games editor, has now gotten a Surface Duo, and his trash talking for the last 9 months is now suddenly ended. It's what I'm telling you. Like, he's never even touched a Surface Duo. He's just been watching the coverage, and he, like everyone else, formed an opinion on it. And we've been pretty honest with Surface Duo. It's an awesome device. It has a lot of drawbacks for a Gen 1, but it's still fun to use. Now he finally got one, and now he's just like, this thing is kind of awesome. Yeah, it is kind of awesome. When you pick up that hardware to use it for the first time, you're like, oh, this is different. They did something really different here. Still needs work, but I'm still using it.
What about themes in Windows 11 and standard wallpaper choice? I'm not sure what you're asking. Are you asking if there are themes in Windows 11? Yes, just like there are in Windows 10. Technically, there's a theme area in the settings app, and there are different themes and wallpapers you can select. They are still part of Windows 11. There are some new wallpapers. There's quite a few new wallpapers actually, which I know some of you will be quite excited to hear. But yeah, like I said, it's a new version of Windows. It's all happening.
I heard you can only tile your wallpaper on Windows 11.
And you use 16-bit color because it's 1995.
Yes, it just tiles it across the screen like an Argyle pattern. We're going back, all the way back to Windows 3.1.
Does Windows 11 look similar to Windows 10, or has it got a different UI? It has a different UI.
Yeah, I mean, that's literally why it's Windows 11.
Yeah, exactly. The UI is the driving factor in that decision.
Any game-related features coming to Windows 11? That's a good one.
I missed that. What was that?
Are there any gaming-related features?
Yeah, I don't know. I've not heard anything specifically.
I am bringing over what's already in Windows 10.
Yeah. Will Windows 11 logo be included on the boot screen? Yes. I don't know if it will say Windows 11. I think it just might be the actual just like squares. But yeah.
You are giving us official news or just guesses? Neither.
These are educated, informed statements. Yes. Yeah. We know certain things, and listen. I'll always say I don't know if I don't know. Put it that way. Or I'll say I guess, or my theory if I'm speculating.
Have you seen the Windows 11 logo?
Maybe. I can neither confirm nor deny.
When it come out, I mean, I feel like we should tell everybody just to go listen to the beginning of the podcast.
Yeah.
So we do expect June 24th. They announce. They're going to also announce that it's going to be available in the developer channels or the insider channels. Hopefully that day, if not very soon after, and it comes out in the fall.
Easy.
And then and when it comes out in the fall, it's also going to launch in conjunction with a bunch of new devices from OEMs, including new Surface devices. Yes. And it would be ideal if Microsoft launched a brand new Surface Pro 8 with a complete redesign with a brand new Windows 11 just in time for the holiday season. I'm just saying that would make sense. That seems like it would be a logical thing to conclude they would do, along with maybe a Studio 3, a new Pro X, and all that kind of stuff.
This is an interesting question. If Windows 10 is coming to an end and Windows 11 replaces it, how do you guys rank Windows 10 compared to previous versions of Windows? Taylor's favorite is still Windows 7. It's a good question. Windows 10 has been interesting because it's set Windows on the path for the future, which is this Windows as a service thing, continually updated, which I know not everybody agrees with, but it's the way things are. Microsoft could improve things by cutting back to one major update a year. I think that'd be perfectly acceptable. But yeah, Windows 10, I think Windows 10 has been my favorite so far. only because of what it promised and what it delivered and what it sort of under-delivered as well, right? That they had these big visions for like fluent design, all this stuff, and they sort of didn't deliver it in the end, and they fumbled a lot of it, but at the same time, it also set up so much and set Windows and Microsoft on this path to where they are today. It was writing the ship for Windows 8, and I think it did that very well. And it has over 1 billion users now. I think they did a good job. Does Windows 11 use C Shell? I'm sure there's some bits and pieces of C Shell in there, but not. I don't know if it's 100% C Shell.
Does Windows 11 add support for cheaper or budget ARM processors for notebooks? They don't need to add support. It's just it'll support ARM. I think that's just a given. So you'll be able to run. So you're talking like a 7C Gen 2, right? So I don't give any. There's no reason to believe that it won't run on ARM processors, right?
No, it will run. So the build in the current dev channel is basically the code base for Windows 11, and that's done. So if it runs on ARM, whatever that build is capable of from a under the hood perspective, that is what Windows 11 is. Yeah, including 64-bit apps, the WSL GUI apps on Linux, all of that stuff will be Windows 11. Some of it may be backported to 21H2, I doubt it, but all of that, all of what's in the dev channel is basically what will be Windows 11. Minus the UI. The UI is what they still haven't announced yet.
I hope someone leaks screenshots. I hope they don't. I really hope they don't. Why? Because we want to tune into June 24th to see the story and how they're going to present it and give the complete picture. What's the joy of it's just like opening your presents before Christmas. It's just why? It sucks.
Yeah, I kind of hope it doesn't either. Because I would have been the one to leak them, but if I can't do it, nobody can.
I really hope no one does, because I want to see the full. Because I want
to see social media blow up, and oh my god, look at the new UI, the new sounds, it's great.
Yeah, curious on Surface Duo 2. Can we expect that video call streaming quality from the camera will be a top priority?
I don't know about the front-facing camera, but the rear-facing cameras definitely.
Yeah.
The front.
Like I said it before. We're careful what you wish for.
Yeah.
You want more cameras? You're getting more cameras. I really think they just went F it.
Yeah.
Slam on the table and just slap on a bunch of cameras on the rear because that's what you're getting.
I think the front-facing camera is okay as it is on the Duo.
Oh, it's great. No, that front-facing camera is the same camera as Surface Pro X.
Yeah, it's okay. It's not like an iPhone selfie camera, but it's good.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. I was gonna say it's the same quality as the Surface Pro X, and in that sense, it's a very good selfie camera for web if you're doing that. It's not a great regular camera. That's its issue, of course, but that'll be fixed on Duo 2.
Will Windows 11 have performance improvements as to CPU and RAM usage? Like I said, all of the under-the-hood improvements are already in testing in the dev channel for the most part. If you're seeing performance improvements in there, then yes. Otherwise, no. Because like I said, all we're really waiting for at this point is the UX and the UI stuff that sits on top of Cobalt. I doubt much. I mean, technically, I guess the new UI could be more performant than the old one, but in regards to actual just like general OS performance and whatnot, I don't think we're going to see anything different from the dev channel build that we have today and the build we get with the Windows 11 UI.
Will the new Windows Store be revealed in the Windows event this month? Yes. Did Zach just say back cameras? Yes. Listen, we've said this before on the podcast. All the criticisms about the hardware on Duo 1 will be fixed in Duo 2. And I think that's pretty obvious. Mm-hmm. I mean, Duo 1 wasn't supposed to be an Android phone. It was supposed to be a pocketable Surface running a version of Windows. They just put Android on at the last minute to save the hardware. Now that they get the chance to do it as an Android phone, and everybody is obviously clearly spoken about like lack of NFC, lack of 5G, the older processor, the not enough RAM, all this stuff, I think it is within the realm of expectations, will be fixed. I really think you're totally fine, and they're going to charge, I believe, the same price for it. That's why it came out as expensive, because you're going to get so much more new hardware with version 2, but at the same price. The real question, though, about the success of this device is going to be the software. Can they get the operating system to behave the way they envision it? I think that's the real challenge. But don't worry about the hardware. I think if you want, and the only thing I think you're not going to get is Qi charging, because Qi charging is very difficult because it's got a big coil. You got to put it into a really thin device. And that's not really the problem. The problem is it generates a ton of heat when it's in use. So if you're using it in a car and it's charging, and you're running GPS, and you're running cellular, and you're using media playback, as a lot of people do, that thing is going to get super hot and can cause a lot of problems internally. I think on a device, don't forget, this thing is half as thin as most smartphones. I think that's the only thing you're not going to get is Qi. But I think everything else, not just a better camera, more cameras, because as I said, the front-facing camera on this device was meant to be used for Microsoft Teams and as a selfie cam. It wasn't really meant to be used as a main camera, though you can use it like that. But now that they can just slap a camera on the back and they can solve that problem too. So,
any chance there will be UX improvements to the touch side of Windows with this new version? Yes, we've talked about that many times on the podcast. With Sun Valley and this Windows 11 stuff, we do expect there to be improvements for touch first scenarios and devices. So for example, they were working on a gesture, I believe it's in, they've built a gesture layer that allows you to use like 3 or 4 fingers to like minimize an app or open up task view and switch between virtual desktops and stuff, just sort of similar to what the iPad can do. They've also got there's a lot of new animations in Windows Sun Valley, Windows 11, that just make using it feel more fluid with touch. Like, I won't go into too many details. I don't think Microsoft would be happy with me. But there's just lots of nice fluid animations and stuff that just make using it and like moving windows around and resizing windows feel a lot more just integrated with touch. So yeah, there are definitely improvements. So the new touch keyboard, we've already seen it. It's already in the builds. The new touch keyboard is night and day over the current one in production, Windows 10. When do you expect Satya to step down as CEO? I don't know. I think he's doing a pretty good job. I don't think he has any plans to anytime soon.
Is Media Center back in Windows 11?
No.
Jesus. All right, I've seen this question asked a couple of times. I have no idea, and I don't think you do either, but maybe. Do you think Windows 11 might use the apt-get Windows Package Manager to automatically install the user's apps regardless of which store they came from, or even if they didn't come from the store?
I don't know. I know the new Microsoft itself uses bits and pieces of WinGet for specific apps and whatnot, but I don't know if they're going to have like a system-wide integration of that.
Would you buy a Surface Duo on sale or wait for Duo 2?
Wait.
We've done even a video on this. Yeah, I would wait. I mean, if you really want to get nuanced, if you can buy it for $570 and you know fully well that later this year, Duo 2 is going to come out with way better hardware, and you're either okay with eating that $500 and then buying the new version, or just waiting and watch everybody enjoy the brand new version, then fine, go get one. Just know the risk. I mean, you can decide yourself. There is a much better hardware version coming out this year, and we don't know all the markets. It'll be more markets than just the US launch previously, but it's not going to be a global launch either, right? They're going to do this, but and then time Duo 3 comes out, there'll be even more markets. So you're going to have perhaps some lag there, but version 2 is going to be significant for the hardware. I think it's going to be really nice.
If Windows 11 gets new sounds, would it be the 10X sounds or would it be new sounds made for Windows 11? It's mostly the 10X sounds. I think some of them might be new. Like the startup sound is definitely new. It's not been heard before. But most of them, like the default sort of notification sound and whatnot, are from 10X, which is fine. I actually really like the 10X sounds. They're much better than the Windows 10 ones.
Well, Windows 11 used less RAM than Windows 10 at the minimum. I mean, again, it's relative.
Yeah.
There's no reason if your system has 64 or 128 gigs of RAM, Windows needs to hold itself back. It should adjust itself to the amount of RAM on your system so that it gives you overall better performance. There's no reason why, if you have 64 or 120 gigs of RAM, Windows should behave like it's on a 4 gig RAM device. That'd be dumb, because you can't squeeze, water out of stone, right? There's going to be performance compromises that way. That said, yeah, I don't know the overall overhead. You would assume they made some cutbacks and reductions, but we don't really know even how you measure that. It's going to be kind of tricky, but we'll wait to see what they have to say. Is Cortana more useful in Windows 11? Probably not.
No, it's the same app unless they have a plan. Unless they're planning to update the app, which they might. I've not heard anything, but otherwise, no.
Any redesign to Task Manager? The crucial question. Zach, do you know about anything different for Task Manager?
No, nothing specific, unfortunately. They might add dark mode to it, though I'm not sure if that will be there on day one. Can you talk to Windows 11 and ask it to do things like turn on my lights? No, you cannot. Will the startup sound be enabled by default? I think so. I don't see why they'd make a new one if it wasn't enabled by default.
So I want to catch Michelle 16 up to Windows 11 news.
Yeah, Microsoft has been teasing the number 11 a lot recently.
Yes.
Someone's asking me to confirm if the sound on Windows 11 is different. Yes, it's not the Windows 10X sound. The startup sound is different. It's new. It's unheard. Can you hear that drill, by the way? Oh, someone's saying, Gus is saying, RAM requirements did get bumped, and it does use a bit more RAM indeed. I know that because it runs worse on the 950s or 3 gigs of RAM. So is that official? Like, have they updated the system requirements? Well, I don't think they have. I could be wrong on that. But hey, it might use more RAM, so good luck. Is Joe Belfiore involved this time? I don't know. I genuinely don't know. Didn't he move to Office, or didn't he go back to Office? I can't remember.
Yeah, I don't think he's directly involved with Windows. He's been doing some side projects and different innovations.
Will the new UI be consistent top to bottom? It will certainly be more consistent on the surface. I'm sure if you dig in, you can probably find some old icons and stuff if you look hard enough. But for the most part, I think they've done a much better job on day one this time around than they did with Windows 10 day one. But yeah, it still has legacy Win32 bits in it. They've definitely done their best to update some of the old legacy stuff with a cleaner looking interface. But they can't go all out for compatibility reasons. So some parts definitely look older than others. But for the most part, I think they've done a much better job, and I think most people will agree. Things at least look like they're part of the same design team this time.
Will x64 emulation be native for ARM processors in Windows 11? Yeah, I think that's a safe bet. The real question is if it's ever going to come to Windows 11. But really, my guess is when these dev versions launch for insiders, that x64 stuff will be in there, just like it is in there now. And you can test it out. Whether it's ready for the fall, probably. I mean, it would have been a year at that point that they've been publicly testing x64 emulation. So you would hope that it would be ready by then. So.
Based on what you were saying about the Duo and Duo 2, is there a even microscopic chance we see a possible Windows device based around 11 now that we have more time to work it out? No. Windows 11 is still a desktop operating system and therefore is not designed to run on phones. So it won't. Is Microsoft redesigning Windows 11 from the ground up? No. Like I said, there's still some legacy stuff in there if you look hard enough, but from a surface level and even like a second surface level, it's much more consistent than Windows 10 is. It looks like it comes from the same design team. They've done their best to update a bunch of legacy areas as well. But like I said, I'm sure if you dig hard enough, you'll be able to find some old icons and old dialog boxes that were designed for like Windows XP or whatever. Will third-party apps look different because of the new UI in Windows 11, or will devs need to do something? I believe devs will need to do something if they want to update their window controls and their Windows UI stuff to look like the rest of Windows 11. They need to update to WinUI 2.6 at minimum, I think. If they don't, then they will just look like Windows 10, I believe. So like I said, some of the legacy controls have been updated subtly. Like, they're not drastic changes. They haven't got reveal effects and stuff, but they're a little bit more modern now, and rounded in areas where it makes sense. But for the modern apps, I think they have to manually be updated to WinUI 2.6. If an app is not designed with Sun Valley in mind, will there be rounded corners on them? Yes. The rounded corners thing is just universal, I believe. Is Windows 11 designed and built with a Surface computer in mind? They're all built with, all of Windows is built with Surface in mind. In fact, actually, I lie. They're probably not, because it would be very biased of them to build Windows just for Surface. They're built with PCs in mind.
Yeah, but I bet they've done some things.
I'm sure there's, well, the pen stuff, there's like pen workspace stuff, I'm sure is sort of Surface inspired.
They do consider Surface to be what Windows PCs should be, what they should all strive for. So the idea that they target some stuff, don't forget, Windows Hello support, first device to have it was Surface Book and Surface Pro, and then they added support so other OEMs could do it too. But it all starts from the Surface devices. So I'd be confident saying that they're going to tie that vision more closely to Surface. It's not going to be a drastic change, but you would hope this stuff would work better on Surface and just be ideal.
Any rumors or ideas about where Microsoft's strategy for more mobile form factors are now with 10X cancelled? No, unfortunately. I think right now they're just focused on making desktop good again. I'm sure they will return to Windows Core / another version of Windows 10X in the future, but that's not happening now, and I'm not aware of any ETA for that. Are you guys going to cover the Xbox Bethesda E3 live stream reaction? I don't think we're going to do a live stream reaction. Jez might. I don't think so, though. But me and Dan aren't. Is news and interest in Windows 11? Kind of, but not really. The actual news and interest widget's gone, and it's replaced with an actual widgets panel, which basically has the same things in it, plus some other stuff, like calendar and whatnot. Will Windows 11 include Notepad? Yes. How will be Windows... Okay, these questions are just falling apart now, guys. How will be Windows 11? Does Windows 11 still have the same start menu of live tiles? No, live tiles are gone. It's a brand new start menu. Goodbye, live tiles. Live tiles are the last remnant of the failed era of Windows, that being Windows Phone and Windows 8. So they are happy to get rid of them, unfortunately. It's a UI design that had promise but ultimately didn't work because developers didn't adopt them, and then Microsoft didn't do anything to improve them once Windows 10 rolled out.
All right, as much fun as this is, I'm going to go mow the lawn.
Wow. Okay, thanks everyone for tuning in. We'll be back next week for more, I guess. I don't know what we'll talk about next week. Hopefully there's some news. But yes, follow us on Twitter. We'll keep you updated on when we go live. But until then, we will see you next time.